This is Patrick and Reginald here for the next edition of the podcast.
What's happening?
Yeah, why don't we see more teaching us subjects, you think, that are outside outside of schools? I think, like, you see music, that's an accepted subject for a teacher to teach at their own home, but you never really see math teachers, science teachers, history teachers, unless they're like tutors specifically, teaching these things at their home. I think it would be a lot cheaper, and I think you could still I would argue you'd even get more one-on-one time, therefore like a more thorough education on the subject.
I don't know. What do you mean? Like, are you saying why aren't there more like private tutors for those stuff? Because there's tons of private tutors for everything.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like this perception like it's not possible to just have a teacher teach a subject out of their own home if you wanted to take a course in it. And
you're talking like accredited course?
Exactly.
Right.
Like, what's with this credibility? Like, you're only a credible teacher if you teach out of a school, like this building.
Right.
What if you still have the certification, the degree?
So you're saying like, oh, if I go over to this lady's house and learn, vector calculus,
Exactly.
I'm not going to get, the piece of paper that proves that, I'm competent in vector calculus.
Yeah, but why is it not? Yeah, exactly. But more than that, why is it not even possible? Why can't you do that and then go take a test on it to see if you know it? Like, they have a test that if you had studied this, you take this battery of tests that proves you know the subject matter to the degree that they require.
Colleges want money.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's why
there's a perception. You won't even consider that's possible. People
don't.
There's
online college courses now.
Yeah, which is similar to teach yourself. Yeah, that is similar, but I think it's possible for teachers, and I think they would make more money if they did this and they were successful. If they were a good teacher, they could house
like every Sunday, like, oh, come on down to my garage and we'll learn, extra math or whatever.
Exactly. And if they did this for a living and they were doing well, it would be more than a garage. They could be like a music teacher where they had their own front. Like, if you want to learn high-level math, I teach all levels of math, and they have courses throughout the day. And you go there, and there's way less overhead, and you're getting a quality education, because if they're not a good teacher, they're going to go out of business.
Yeah. I guess what people would argue is that you don't have, like, a standardized way of proving that these people are credible, and you got to protect against, charlatanism
we do test
or whatever.
That. We test that with standardized tests. That's how you...
No, standardized tests don't really do much in the school system.
No, they do in the federal level as far as grant money and things like that go. That's where they get their credibility for how well schools are doing against each other.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with how well you are. Like, to pass math, you don't have to pass the state math class.
No, you're right, but you could do that. Especially, if you had a system like this,
if you pass the state math test and you fail the course, you failed.
Yeah, no, but that's not what I'm talking about. If in this system where if you could take this course from the teacher directly,
right?
Then if you pass this test, and that's the whole grade, is whether or not you know the subject matter.
There's a giant mountain of crony capitalism going on with schools and public sector unions and regulation and accreditation and certifications,
right?
and bureaucracy bullshit.
Yeah.
Is what is preventing it.
Yeah, it's more than just the building. It's everything in the building. The counselors, all the support staff, maintenance. Just by having this campus, as well as like the government entity being involved in it, you're going to have this huge overhead.
Even like music teachers have this to some degree. Like, I know there's like in certain states you have to be in part of like a musical union. Where you can't like snipe other people's like
students.
Yeah, and you can get like sued and stuff for that if you like have too many. I don't know the exact details, but
that's crazy.
You see this. You see this. Yeah, we live in Oregon. It's particularly crazy for the regulation you have to do for like specific stuff. Like,
examples.
Like being a massage therapist, you got to go to school for 2 years. You got to pass a state test. I think there's a lot of jobs
where you have to go to school for that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, like you need to go to school for touching and rubbing people.
Yeah,
come on.
Like, if you're not competent,
you need to go to school to like cut hair.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I guess like some people would care about that. Like, they would probably want to, like, if you're like, especially if you're a girl and you're spending like $200 on your hairdo or whatever.
Yeah.
You want somebody who knows what they're doing, but a guy goes in there for $12 and just gets a trim. Who gives a shit?
And at the same time, I think if you weren't good at what you were doing, the market takes that out. You're not going to get any.
Yeah, the business is going to fire you. They're not just going to hire any random person.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly, and I think accreditation, like organizations that you pay and then take a test to show they're competent and then they certify you, I think that's totally okay, but it has to be willing and not forced.
Right.
That makes perfect sense. If you want to be able to validate your skills, that a bunch of you get together and decide because you know a lot about the subject, to make some kind of certification, I think that's fine, and it's up to the businesses whether or not they accept that or not.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's crazy that...
Yeah, it's kind of an
we've
interesting
never-
idea. It'd be kind of cool to like go to Mr. Litchfield or something and go, you know, for
Exactly.
extra history courses
Yeah,
or whatnot.
because everyone who would be there would want to also, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting way to learn, you know? And you wouldn't have to get through the generic textbook. He could give you specific books to get, or...
Oh, yeah, like,
what have
oh,
you.
we're going to read original source material
Exactly.
or something. We're going to read this first-hand account
Yeah.
at the Battle of Verdun or something.
And that's the best part, is you could choose your teacher.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a huge benefit. Like,
Yeah, it's
there's
pretty cool. Like, on the
terrible
internet,
teachers
like, I mean, if you're just interested in self-knowledge and you're not really interested, you know, particularly about the certification or whatnot, like, you know, I've taken that...
oh, I do that of my own accord. Yeah, exactly.
like online college courses. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
them are
yeah.
freely published.
Yeah,
and I've
yeah, I
you
see
know,
that.
followed a
MIT
couple
does
of them.
it in a lot of the Ivy Leagues.
Yeah,
I've been doing that lately.
yeah. Like what's that guy? Dreyfus, that Heideggerian dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've you know, listened to all his lectures and whatnot.
Okay, yeah. So what's your opinion on mental health? Real, not real?
I don't know. I'm not well versed in it. So, like, what do you mean real or not real? Like, people are just like, oh, autism, that's just made up, or like ADHD, that's just made up.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean,
not
people claim-
another
people
whether or not
claim-
it's real or not real, like depression, whether or not that's real or not. It's
Right.
more like, how often is it misdiagnosed? And do you think that doctors in this country seem to be prescription happy?
I mean, I don't.
It's a hard thing to diagnose, right? It's based solely on the patient's perception of it.
No, I mean, there's certified. I don't know how exactly it's established, but there's like a book that lays out the principles that you need to establish in order to give a diagnosis and those things. It's like I can't remember what it's called, but
And this book is credible.
yeah, it's by the American. I don't know what the exact.
What, the ADA?
It's not the ADA. Yeah, the American Dental Association. Yeah, no, it's I can't remember what it is, but there's like diagnostic standards for psychology and for mental health. It's not just like people like, oh, you have ADHD, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Do you think it's a
Here's,
little harder to
Ritalin.
diagnose than a physical illness?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just
It's less visible, right?
sure. And are you saying,
verifiable
is there
evidence.
like economic reasons where there's kickbacks or
So
shady
you're
business
talking- yeah, you're
practices?
talking
Yeah,
about
to be
corrupt
sure.
people, but
to-
that exists everywhere, right?
To what? Well, not everywhere. But there's
Well, like with painkillers, that exists, right? I'm talking about other medical fields.
well, I don't know how
besides
painkillers would
mental
exist like that.
Oh,
I mean-
well, anyone who experiences pain, the doctor is willing to write painkiller prescriptions because of the revenue, right?
Oh
Kickback
yeah, yeah,
from
sure,
the pharmacy.
sure.
Not necessarily the pharmacy, the pharmaceutical company.
I mean, to what
Like-
degree that's happening, though, I have no idea.
Yeah, same. I mean, you're right. in
People
that
just
we haven't really done
assume
our research to talk
people
about
assume
this.
it's rampant. I don't really know how rampant or unrampant it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I've seen that sort of.
But I mean, I guess
addiction
one
from my
thing that,
personal experience, but that's
Like one thing, especially with Robin Williams committing suicide about depression. It's like, oh, depression is a disease or something.
yeah,
Like I don't, I just kind of, I don't, full out disagree with that. But it's like, on a philosophical basis, it's kind of weird because it's like, with these psychological issues, there's like a personal experiential element to the question, to the issue. Like to just claim it's a disease, like it's unrelated to the person, doesn't make any sense. Like, cancer has nothing to do with how, well versed or well educated or how thought out I am, or
yeah. But depression is.
or how self-reflect. Yeah, depression is,
You think it's tempered by someone who has a? if they actually have depression, I think they would suffer in the same way, regardless of education.
Well, it's not
We're talking
really.
about a real medical.
It's not really.
Right?
No,
So.
it's not really clear. Like people think that it could be environmental, could be biological factors, could be a combination of the two. But the therapy for it is essentially cognitive behavioral therapy, which is about
Yeah, exactly.
self-reflection and trying to understand the psychological causes of it. They're not addressing it purely on a biological issue.
See, that's
so
the
to
hard
claim
part.
it it's
That's
just
what I'm
a
talking about with
disease. To
this.
claim it is just a disease, I think, is to discount the real experiential or personal side of it.
Yeah, but there are no physical changes that occur with, as far as I'm aware of, right? With depression, it's not a physical change.
Well, I know
it's an
you can, no,
emotional
you can
one. It's a personality
you
change.
can measure
So how
like
do you-
serotonin differences and stuff like that, but
Okay, so if they have like a depleted, like a less than normal range of serotonin being released into their blood on an average,
yeah, I mean that's what
then
antidepressants do is like they change your brain
increase it,
chemistry.
right? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there is a physical link there.
Yeah, but
they don't seem to test that before they prescribe pills for depression. It's more like
I think that is
you
part
make
of the
claim.
depression, or part of the diagnosis. And
It's not when it comes to ADHD,
ADHD, you can measure some things,
but
with
they
it.
don't. At least not when I went in. They did not measure anything. You take a test,
Right.
and it's like a 1 to 10 scale. It's like 20 questions, and if you get over a certain number, then they prescribe you ADHD medication.
Yeah.
And how is that a proper diagnosis? It's completely based on the opinion of the patient, which it is. They're the ones experiencing it, sure, but they don't have the medical training for diagnoses. So if the doctor's just going off this static number on a page that the patient just filled out on this test, how is that a proper diagnosis?
I mean, I don't have the background to really, make much comment on it.
But do you think that seems like he's paid enough attention?
Well, I mean, I feel like just from the ether or the zeitgeist that people bring this up a lot, that there's problems with the pharmaceutical industry, or overdiagnosis of ADD and ADHD and stuff like that, and throwing away throwing around antidepressant drugs like candy, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and not really fully understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think with pretty much all depression cases, it's a combination of therapy and drugs and whatnot. So
Yeah, I mean, do you think that it exists in a viewable percentage? I think these overprescriptions. I totally understand.
like,
how
could
they
it be
happen.
measurable?
Yeah,
what
like
you're
is it
saying?
observable?
I would assume, like in all sociological issues, that there's a lot of variables and it's very difficult to tease these things out.
Oh yeah, to say
But I mean-
concretely that that's what's happening.
But I
Sure.
do not doubt that there are very smart people with PhDs who can come up with ways to try to demonstrate this. And it's up to the scientific community to really do it.
Yeah.
I think the problem is a lot of times people don't really listen to the scientific community. They just kind
I
of go
think
with
that
their
happens
own.
a lot.
They just go with their own assumptions. Follow their own narratives. Don't even bother looking to the evidence or whatever.
Well, I mean, anything we've talked about, we'd have to then look up and seek out the evidence. So I understand anything you would ever consider, if you're going to be thorough about it, is going to take a lot of research. And that gets daunting when you're talking about anything you believe, On a day-to-day basis, anyone makes any claim, you're going to go through and try to verify that and find out if it's true based on the evidence.
I don't think that's true at all, especially for politics. Like politics, I don't know.
I
if
think
it's
that's
even-
harder to measure scientifically.
I don't think it's possible to
Politics.
measure
Yeah,
scientifically
exactly.
these political thoughts or philosophical thoughts. Obviously, not the case.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about specifically like
there's different
things like
realm-
medical knowledge. You're
Yeah.
saying that's measurable. You should go your way if you're going to believe something, to look for the evidence in that, and that
Right.
most of the stuff during the day that you believe, you don't have to look for the evidence because it doesn't exist. Like
Or it's
when
not really
politics,
measurable.
Right? Yeah, measurable. Exactly. So yeah, static information about it doesn't exist like that.
right.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally understand why doctors would do this if
Get more
it
money.
seems like, yeah, well, that's not entirely it either. I think that's part of it, but I think it's easy to treat the symptoms. It's like, well, I'm suffering from this. Oh, well, these pills claim to fix that. So I'm just going to prescribe you these pills. If they don't work out, I'll prescribe other pills that do something similar.
I mean, Yeah, but I mean, if you like have a good doctor and you know your doctor, then you're gonna want to get a doctor who like the doctors don't just like
Yeah, that's personal
they
responsibility.
read the studies and like okay,
Exactly.
this is what I'm specialized in. If I'm like a a knee doctor or whatever, like this I've seen the studies, I've seen the science behind it, and this type of whatever procedure is going to be best for you. This is my best recommendation. Then yeah, are there shitty doctors out there? I mean, sure. To what degree is it? I don't know. Are
But
people
how often
just
do you
kinda...
think the patients question the doctor? I think a lot of the time, them being a doctor in itself lends credibility to the person, and that most people wouldn't hesitate to believe what they said. They don't ask them for proof, like, well, why do you think that? You know what I mean? So
Well, I
how
mean-
often do you test your doctor? I believe my doctor's credible. She sounds credible to me when she explains it to me, and I ask her about it. She seems like she understands the subject quite well, but I'm sure that's not always the case. I'm not sure how in-depth people go. I do, but I seem to do that a lot. I'm not sure if that's a common thing or not.
I mean, I don't know, is my answer. I would think I would, especially if it was a more serious issue, then I would want to do more research on it, or get second opinions on it. Like I know, like
Definitely, I do that for every condition I get diagnosed with.
my
I mean,
my
it
girlfriend
makes sense.
got braces, and she went to like 5 different orthodontists.
Yeah, I think that's responsible.
and they said some of them said different stuff of what they wanted to
yeah,
do.
but I don't think that's common. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I
I mean,
don't think
that's
the
that's
majority.
people's choices. If they don't
You're
want
right,
to
personal
do that
responsibility.
stuff, then that's
Totally.
their problem.
But that's why this is able to take place. This behavior we're talking about. If people treat it like they treat banks,
Right. Well, then
which
they
we
should,
talked about
yeah.
before,
Well, then they shouldn't be able to complain about it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, I mean, yeah.
We haven't printed that book yet.
Oh, the chess book?
Yeah, it should be. They had some problems with their files, so it's going to be a week or two out. But I'll get it to you as soon as I can get a copy.
Cool. What else you got on the list?
That was it.
2 topics?
3, but the first one was bunk.
Oh.
Yeah. What do you think about Bernie Sanders?
I don't know anything about him.
No, I haven't looked into it at all.
All I know is hippies like him. That's all I know.
I think it's more.
I
than
know
hippies.
he's a straight up communist, isn't he?
I think young voters like him a lot, and he's a self-proclaimed socialist.
Why do young voters like him? Is he like an old fuck? Like really old?
Because it seems like young voters, at least the ones I'm exposed to, are more liberal-minded, and they like the idea of and Bernie Sanders is claiming redistribution essentially, and they're all for
Right.
it.
Well,
I don't think he'll get anything done in Congress, but I'm interested to see how the American Republic or the American public reacts to seeing a president be completely ineffective, even if they want him to do something. I'm curious how angry they'll get at Congress. I want a real shakeup to happen. It's kind of scary, like that creative destruction that Dan Carlin mentions.
you're saying if Bernie Sanders gets elected, he won't be able to do anything?
I'm saying either he's going to attempt to do drastic stuff, and I think if it's drastic enough, nothing will happen, and either the American public will just ignore it,
I mean,
or blow up about it
basically, like the president is able to do whatever he wants.
through executive order. But
Like, I mean, you look at FDR and like the the New Deal.
yeah,
None of that stuff was run through Congress. Like half of the programs that he initiated were deemed unconstitutional, but it didn't stop him from putting new stuff forward.
yeah, it seems crazy then that we have all these lockdowns where presidents can't pass what they want. Then I think they're
Well, they're not supposed to
must be
pass
some line.
anything.
Yeah.
They're not of the legislative branch. They have executive orders.
Well, they don't
basically.
pass anything, but they try to influence what should change, what laws should be made through
Well-
Congress, definitely. And a lot of the times, well, I'm saying he should pass, but what I mean is the party he represents wants to pass material that he supports that does not pass Congress.
Well, I mean, right now the House is, the House is Republican,
I haven't been following.
and so I'm pretty sure the
This is-
Senate is Republican too.
So the whole Congress is
Yeah.
Republican? Well, obviously, the majority is what we mean.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Bernie Sanders getting any support from his party because
Well, we're not even up to the primaries yet, so This
that's
is really
true. It's
nothing.
outside
This
of
doesn't
it.
mean anything.
Well, yeah, it's a hype building machine. It does mean something, but not officially, right? They're trying to get recognition at this point, so they can end up on the primary vote and get enough votes.
I mean, like in
the
2008, everybody was saying Hillary was going to
nominee.
win. You know, the
Yeah.
Democratic nomination. Then Obama came out of nowhere and
Yeah.
beat her.
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows? I doubt Bernie Sanders is going to do anything because he's too crazy.
You mean he's not going to go anywhere?
Yeah, I don't think
election?
he's going to go anywhere.
I think he's building momentum. Like I keep seeing every day more and more articles. Like there was one the other day that said it used to be like I'm interested in Bernie Sanders, but he could never win, and now it's Bernie Sanders is going to be president. It was the article, and whether or not that is true is completely different. But the fact that it's there, just being like I saw it, means it's popular enough to get tossed around. And as I said, you know, my sphere of influence, what I see and am influenced by, is younger people who are more liberally minded. So I think it's spread like wildfire amongst that crowd.
Like young people are like the worst voting demographic. They just don't vote.
I think Obama owes a lot of his election to young voters, and I think that is kind of changing. When you polarize them, they actually do stuff. I mean, like Occupy Wall Street didn't accomplish any objectives. It didn't seem like they had any clear objectives, but they did put a lot of bodies in the street, and I would argue that they're mostly young, disenfranchised people.
No, if you actually look at the surveys of them, it was like most of them were like middle-class white liberals who had like above average education and above average income.
And like older, like 30s? Is that
yeah, but the average age was like around
20s, 20-something.
No. It was basically
I
like...
haven't looked into it, so...
But, no, like, I think, like, the worst demographic for, like, voting turnout is, like, 25 and under.
Yeah.
So... But who knows?
Yeah, it seems to be getting worse over time. I keep seeing people...
well, people are just disenfranchised
Yeah,
with
they
the
don't
system.
think their vote matters. And
well, it doesn't matter.
It does, yeah, exactly. It doesn't appear to, so...
Only in certain areas does it matter.
Well, that's why I think Bernie Sanders is kicking up a lot of dust, is because people, whether or not it's true, see him as a radical candidate and can really shake up the system, and that's why he's garnering a lot of interest. They think their vote might possibly matter this time, whether or not that is true.
I mean, that's what they thought with Obama in 2008.
Exactly, but it does seem that strategy seems to work quite well.
I think a
Republican.
I think a Republican is going to win just because people are just
it
like,
seems to be flip flop like that, right?
People just get sick of one party and then switch
Flip
over
to the other one. That's part of that stagnation in our country, you know. It's like one or the other.
Well, there's structural reasons why it's the case.
Oh, I see it, but it seems to be failing lately.
There's no third party on the map.
No, I know, but why it was created, like, as if it was to help our country prosper? We've gotten to this point, but it seems to be declining.
No, it wasn't the Founding Fathers' design to create two large political parties, but it's a byproduct of the design.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah. Especially the way that we vote for representatives.
Yeah.
It's winner take all. We could even without a non-parliamentary system, you could have proportional representation of your senators.
Yeah.
So like,
I agree.
or your House of Representatives.
That's where they try to make that compromise, right? The representatives are proportional, but the senators are not. It's equal representation.
Yeah. So like your representatives, the way you vote for them. Like in your like, let's say in like Salem or whatever.
Yeah.
We have one representative, and the Democrats win by like 51%.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So like all the votes for, the Republicans are just basically. Or sorry, let me flip this around. So let's say the Republicans win in Salem by 51%.
Mm-hmm.
So all the votes for the Democrats didn't matter, right? So there's the only representative from Salem is going to be Republican.
Yeah.
And then in the Portland area, their representative, the Democrats win by like 70%.
Yeah.
So all of those votes are just basically wasted for the Democrats because they are like such a huge majority higher. If those people had actually lived in Salem, then it would be different. If more people lived in Salem from Portland.
I get you. You're discounting the difference, right?
Right. So what you would see is if you had proportional representation, it would be like you vote for like a party or something
I get you.
Or
So
you vote for, like,
literally
three
every
different
vote
people.
does count because
And you
from
would,
the bottom
right,
level,
and you would
the
vote for like
representatives.
3 or so different people.
Yeah.
And you would see like representatives, like you would have like 2 Democrats and a Republican from Portland.
Gotcha. So you're just multiplying the number of politicians.
No, it wouldn't
But
create
you
more
think it'd be-
politicians. It would create more diversity because it would allow third parties to come in because you only need like a certain percentage to hold a seat, whatever.
But
that.
it would. Both of those things would happen. You would have more politicians.
You wouldn't have more politicians because there's only a limited number of seats in Congress.
Yeah. So you're saying
It just wouldn't be winner take all. It'd be
I
proportional.
don't see how if
representation.
each region or whatever has one representative based on whoever got the most votes. You would have to increase the number of representatives per district,
Yeah,
or whatever, to talk
you
about
get rid
what
of the
you're doing.
redistricts and then you vote on the state
As a whole?
as a
And
whole,
then
and you do
representative
proportionate.
of that.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. I agree.
And you
Yeah.
vote for like the people you want. So
Yeah.
you would vote for like you had to have like 4 votes or something based
Yeah.
on how big your state was. And right now, basically, like the way districting is and like they redistrict stuff, it's basically just to like
Why would you have 4 votes? Couldn't you just have one vote with all the names on it, and based on the proportion of those votes, you would just pick those representatives?
I don't. What did you say?
You're talking about having 4 votes?
Like yeah, because you have certain or whatever how many representatives you have from your state, you would have like you would get a vote for like different people.
Yeah, why don't you just... Oh, okay, yeah. But how would
You
you
get your first
subdivide
choice,
those?
your second choice, your third choice, your fourth choice, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, maybe you like a Democrat and a Republican, like 2 different candidates from a different party.
Mhm.
You could vote for this is my first guy, this is my second, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, whoever gets a certain percentage, like whatever the cap is, in Europe it's like 7%. Depends on the country, and then you get a seat in Congress.
Why can't you just have one vote with all the names on it, and based on who they voted for, then the percentage would be divided up? So you would have like... To keep it simple, we'll just do Republican and Democrat, right? Let's say
Yes,
there's
you can
10
do it like that.
representatives.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, and then you'd have... If they got 60%, they would get 6 representatives, while the other party would
Well,
get
I mean,
4.
I don't know the exact in and outs of the system, but some people do it like you vote like multiple times. You have
Yeah.
you have like your top 3 or something,
Yeah.
and then some have like you just do one. It depends on the system or whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like a... controlled hunts.
Well, yeah, that's what the redistricting is. Is like in some states, it's like there's more, whatever party, there's more Republicans than there are Democrats in the state. But because of because of districting laws, Democrats win the state
Yeah.
because of how the districts count votes.
So you're talking about like the Republicans being spread so thin, there may be more of them, but they're in such small percentages in places that have a higher Democratic percentage.
right.
Exactly. So overall, the state is mostly Republican, but they're spread so thin in each place that they always lose those votes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see why you would feel disenfranchised at that. It's like...
And well, I mean, for like the
Seems unfair.
president, voting for like president doesn't matter. Only
Yeah,
just for
because the
only
Electoral College, right?
no, not because of the electoral
Well, that's
college.
part of it.
No, that has nothing to do with it. Like,
You think that's
there's
relevant?
never been a time where the electoral college didn't vote the way the state won. That's never happened.
I think individuals have gone the opposite way when their state won.
No,
in
that's
one thing.
never happened. That's
I think
never
we have to
happened.
look into that.
Look it up. It's never happened where a state voted for a president in a certain way and the electoral representative voted differently. It's never
Okay.
happened.
All right. So where do you think the problem takes place?
Because the way it's winner takes all in states, and it's not a popular vote or
Yeah,
or
this stems from
different.
the same thing you were talking about before. Proportional representation.
Right, like
Because of that,
Like, 'cause Oregon
in the
is like-
same method,
Oregon's
those
like
votes are lost.
80% Democrat or something.
Yeah, so the 20% Republican vote does not contribute to their cause at all.
Right, and
I
it
get
doesn't
that.
actually matter even if you're a Democrat to even vote because your state's going to win every time. The only states that it matters to
Yeah.
vote are swing states like Ohio, Florida, and like a few others.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't.
Contested states.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah,
Florida.
most other states that are just like Texas is always
They're
going to
totally
be Republican.
one-sided. Yeah.
Your vote doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and that's part of a cultural thing, right? The ostracization. It shows that if, as a culture you believe this, and whether or not that's right or wrong, if you don't believe it, then you're not going to be represented. And that's the same way in the society. If you run a business and you run counter to what the prevailing culture is, you're going to be ostracized and no one's going to go there. That works in the micro and the macro.
You're saying that's why specific regions of the area are more Republican than Democrat is because of social ostracization?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Well,
really
I think
true at all.
that takes place for that reason. That
I mean, I don't really
the
see there's not
majority
much
decides.
there's not much social ostracization based on politics, because if I'm just walking around, people don't know what political factions I have.
I think if you walked around Portland as like a vocal Republican,
Yeah, but
you'll
most
get a lot
people
of dirty
aren't
looks,
vocal.
right?
People are just walking around getting their sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not
We're
like,
very
oh,
quiet, hush hush about our
it's
politics.
not hush hush. It's because it just doesn't come up. When I'm buying a sandwich, I'm not like, God damn that fucking gas tax. You know what I mean, huh? Those
People
fucking
do
liberals.
that.
Yeah, to some degree, but it's like, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much social, pressure is the reason for that, or if it's more has to do with like regional issues where like Republicans tend to be in more rural areas because the policies they feel, the values they have are more like individual, self-responsibility, these things.
Yeah, it kind of fits, really.
And like
because,
all major urban areas are all democratic.
Yeah, which is like
or
supporting each other.
Yeah.
That's the message they try to pass anyway, right? Yeah,
Right.
It's like individual personal responsibility versus supporting a guy who can't support himself.
Right.
And when you're in a city, you rely on your neighbor, sort of feeling. Yeah, it's interesting how that works. I think everything gets diluted when it gets to that sort of broad scale. You know what I mean? No views are completely...
What gets diluted?
Just like social change, anything. Like when you're examining, we're talking about Republicans and Democrats. It's so much more specific than that, the varying degrees of Republican and Democrat.
Oh yeah, what a Democrat and what a Republican actually means.
And what they want, specifically.
Yeah, like Bernie
people.
Sanders is like a communist,
Exactly.
basically.
And
like,
that is not... And then we talk about moderates, right? Like people who are down the line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's because, like, the way the structure of, like, representation, you have to be either a Democrat or Republican to get basically any chance of,
and then you have to compromise,
representation.
even if you have certain beliefs. You're still going to have to compromise to get certain voters on your side, to get certain companies on your side.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get to the White House or Congress, you owe so many allegiances, and your beliefs have to be so watered down that there's no real change that takes place. And it seems like it was by design. That we wanted things to get stalled up because the Founding Fathers didn't think we should be making laws willy-nilly.
Well, it's definitely the case that they didn't want them to make laws willy-nilly, but I don't think it's stagnant. Like, Obama just, made 10 million people citizens in one,
you told me about that.
one swing of a pen with his amnesty clause.
But he had to fight for a year to get the health bill passed, right? So, and then what
Well,
about
for,
he was trying to,
years.
and then the TPP. There was all that stuff about that. He finally got it going, but there was a lot of resistance.
Yeah, I hear a lot of conspiracy theorists out there. People were,
we're
complaining about the Confederate flag while the Trans-Pacific Partnership is being signed.
Yeah.
Secret, in hush-hush,
Yeah, no, it's not visible in the news. I think part of that is it's just not a popular subject that people want to watch.
Well, yeah, because the news is basically entertainment. It's not really
exactly.
news.
It's based on if people find certain issues important, they're going to show it because they want viewership.
I mean, it's basic. Like journalism is like basically non-existent at this point. I don't know if I could see any. There's not real journalists out there.
There are, but they're not on the mainstream media.
Where are they then? What are they doing?
They're in the field in Israel talking about Gaza. They exist. You just have to look them up. You have to find them out, and that's hard, right? Because they're not given to us via YouTube Top 5 or CNN, so you have to go out of your way to find good journalists, but they exist and they release things.
Yeah, like
all the time.
UVA rape case. That was real journalism, wasn't it?
I'm not saying that bad things happen all the time, but that's up to you to.
Like, I don't know of any known prominent journalists. Basically, all that exist now are pundits. Like people who don't.
What is a pundit?
So, like a journalist is somebody who goes and gets the actual information, vets the information, finds out the story, and presents it on a factual basis.
Yeah.
A pundit is somebody who gives their own personal political view on it. So, like Bill O'Reilly is not a journalist. He's not going out finding stories and breaking news. He talks about the news and gives his own opinion. Doing. Yes, this would be like punditry or.
Yeah.
Op-ed or whatnot.
Exactly. But I have seen credible journalists, but I don't memorize their names, and that's on me. I should go out of my way to find and follow more credible journalists. But I do know they exist.
Sure, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to look up, journalist reports from different war zones or different crisis zones,
one
they do
journalist
exist.
that I really like is John Stossel. He's
Yeah.
actually a journalist. He's on Fox
before you
Business.
made the claim they didn't exist.
They really don't exist.
But you're talking about this guy being a journalist.
Yeah, this
and
is
he does
one
exist.
guy.
So he does exist.
I said they really don't exist as a whole. There's right now all that the news is
I'm
just
saying they're
basically
not nearly as
punditry.
visible. And I think we're saying the same thing. They do exist, but they're not a loud voice. It's hard. You have to go your way. You have to have an interest in the subject to find them, which is wrong, but that's what the public wants. They want to see Miley Cyrus twerking and how sensational it is.
Yeah.
We have this BuzzFeed type mentality about our news nowadays, as a whole anyway.
What was it? Churchill said if you want to see the greatest argument against democracy, have a 5-minute conversation with your average citizen.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And then that you can make an argument for Hitler being right, at that point. Just like euthanizing people. It's like they don't deserve to live.
Because they're stupid or something?
Exactly. Or bourgeoisie, like aristocracy. That's where that comes from. Like people have a right to choose. Do they? I mean, should they? They're pretty dumb, and as a whole, they make dumb choices.
Yeah.
But who's to measure that? You can't, as one person, say to another person that I know that you don't deserve what I do because you aren't worthy of it. That's kind of what that argument is. Like, if you talk to your average citizen, he is dumb. That's completely from your perspective, right?
No, I think that's a measurable thing. If somebody's stupid or not. That's
I think
real.
you can definitely weigh it, but I think it's hard to definitely objectively measure
I see these videos.
Like IQ test, like we admit, it is good for measuring these specific aspects, but as a whole, it's a bad picture.
No,
of
I mean,
intellect.
you watch these videos of people going to college campuses and asking showing them a picture of Ronald Reagan and be like, "Who is this?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know who this is."
People do say that, but people know, and they're not going to put in their video if they're trying to make a splash, right? You're not going to put in all the times people did know it was Ronald Reagan. You might put in one or two to lend credibility.
That has nothing to do with my point of saying those people who don't know who these people are walking around not paying attention.
Yeah, but like we heard in the chess video, we have this scale, right? You have people who are of above average
distribution
intellect,
curve.
And then
well, I don't think it's an issue.
It's not.
It's not an issue of intellect. I think it's people just want to. It's like willful ignorance. They just want to watch, as you said, watch Miley Cyrus twerk instead of dedicating a life
so you
towards
don't think
learning.
They're actually dumb. They're choosing to be dumb.
Yeah, they're not choosing. They're choosing to just for sheer entertainment. A la Fahrenheit 451.
They're coasting through life. Is that the idea?
Yeah, Fahrenheit 451. Constantly plugged into entertainment.
I think that's about Brave New World right there.
I've never read Brave New World.
Oh, you should. It's very good. It's like 1984 is like totalitarian government, and Brave New World's more like a public who becomes lethargic and willing to be the instrument of this powerful government, basically. It's more of like a choice, a willful ignorance, like we're talking about. Kind of like Idiocracy.
It's similar to Fahrenheit 51, Ray Bradbury, predicted basically the iPod before it existed. He describes his characters as constantly plugged in, listening to music wherever they go, and they have giant walls of TVs that they're constantly watching.
Yeah, have you ever seen that movie They Live? I think we watched it together. Remember? It's John Carpenter, early 80s.
No, I've never seen it.
I believe you have. And
no, I haven't.
There's these sunglasses that the character gets that let him see these aliens who are slowly taking over the planet. It turns all the billboards of McDonald's commercials and stuff. They become black and white. It just says obey,
no, I haven't seen
buy,
it.
sell, commerce. Just reinforcing these ideas to keep us divisive.
Yeah, I've been really starting to get interested again in George Orwell. I've been following.
What, Animal Farm?
I've been following this YouTube channel, this guy Vernaculus, and he's a huge fan of Orwell, and talks about how a great journalist and the principles that he, the anti-fascist principles, or anti-totalitarian principles he had. So I think once I finish this Harry Potter series, I'll probably start reading a bit more Orwell.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I've just been reading just fictions lately. I was thinking about reading some historical fiction. I got a signed copy from a book we printed about the Western frontier, and it's a historical fiction. So it's where you take actual commentary from the time, from eyewitness reports, and then you turn that into a story, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've read a couple of those, and they're pretty good. I enjoy them.
Yeah, usually I don't read fiction. Like Harry Potter is like the first time I've read in a while.
I mean, to me, you know, reading fiction is like television, and I guess reading nonfiction would be similar to watching a documentary. You know, it's just like sometimes I'm in the mood for one, sometimes I'm in the mood for the other. If like the subject captures my attention, sure, I'm gonna read it. You know, I was thinking about like Dan Carlin keeps mentioning books on certain subjects. I want to pick up some like World War I histories.
Yeah, he
Interesting.
on his website he shows all the source material he uses
Awesome.
for his episodes. And they're
Yeah,
like,
that
there's
just
like
lends
30
credibility to
books
him.
or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's
I have this
crazy.
one right now that's a nonfiction. Doctor talks about diet and nutrition. It's in
Okay.
support of a paleo diet. I wanted to read it.
I mean,
see what
nutrition
it's
is one of those things that's like there's so much information contradicting
yeah.
everything. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
some people say high carb, some people say low carb, some people say, you know, paleo, some people
I think
say,
it depends on the lifestyle.
I
You know,
don't- I
if
don't
you're
know.
running and working out all the time, a high carb diet makes perfect sense because that's burnable fuel immediately.
I mean,
whereas
I
if
don't-
you're a sedentary lifestyle, like you know,
Right.
like me sitting here talking to you, playing video games, sitting in a chair all day at work,
Right.
then I need less carbs.
I don't know, because like in Asia, they're skinny as hell, and those they eat as carbs.
Yeah, but they eat less of them. Like it's proportional too. And
You're
they
just
eat
saying
a lot
they
more
eat less-
vegetables. They eat less protein, which is why they're also smaller.
But I thought the paleo diet was basically all protein and then vegetables.
Yeah,
And fruits.
and those people were bigger. Northern Europeans have carbs and proteins because they can't really grow vegetables in a northern climate as well.
Well, they would have basically no carbs from a paleo diet.
Well, they have starches, which are, I believe, a
Like what?
carbohydrate.
What would from what?
Potatoes, roots.
Isn't that
They eat a lot of those.
wasn't that once like farming
Yeah, it's
took
a
place,
carb.
and that wouldn't be a paleo diet? Like I thought paleo diet was like basically like 80% meat
Well, no,
and then
you don't
like
need to
fruits
farm
and
to get
vegetables.
those things. They exist in the wild.
Potatoes?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was mostly like berries.
Well, these
and-
plants come from other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I thought like the potato was like corn, where it was like over a long evolutionary period of farming.
No, the potato existed before, but it was a lot smaller, and I
Uh-huh.
believe a lot of varieties of it were poisonous.
Right.
But they were eating a lot of roots and starchy. Yeah, I mean, they theorized the appendix.
But I
was
meif
used
weren't
for
like
processing roots.
ancient humans hypercarnivores? Like 80% of their diet was meat.
I don't know.
Right.
But I believe they were, well, if we're talking about like Homo sapiens,
Yeah.
then I would say they were omnivores. We're not that much different from our, you know, Homo sapien ancestors from thousands of years ago. They just hunter-gatherers, you know, so they also gathered berries and roots.
Yeah, I thought that their main source of food was meat.
I wouldn't think so because it's more inefficient. It's easier to gather roots and berries than it is to.
Well, it's not
hunt down an
well,
animal.
no, but roots and berries
And
have far
energy.
less calories.
Yeah, but just
Way less.
But it takes a lot more calories to bring down an animal. You'd send people to do that, but most of the time you're subsisting off of the roots and berries.
I don't know.
that
How,
got you
I
the
mean, I
animal.
don't know how much it is because you'd have to get a lot more roots and berries than get one animal.
Yeah, but they come in clusters. And getting one animal
So
is
do
very
animal.
hard and took a lot of people to do. So I think protein was a very light part of our diet, which is why we crave the fats. Because historically, it was harder to get.
Well, that's because animals don't have a lot of fat.
Yeah, it's harder to get.
But that's not because we didn't eat a lot of meat. It's
Well,
because
we probably
animals
didn't eat
have
as
any
many
fat.
animals.
Animals don't have fat. Like
Yeah.
animals running around don't really have fat.
No,
At least the
that's
ones we
true,
could
yeah.
kill.
That's a good point.
Like that's why we would want it, not because we weren't eating a lot of meat. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with sugar.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, the availability of sugar.
But I know like
It's
other
definitely
primates, like
hard
humans, are like one of the only primates that eat. Besides like humans, like baboons, I think,
Mhm.
are like one of the only like primates that eat a ton of meat.
We found out that's not true. Orangutans eat meat, and so do chimpanzees.
No, they do eat meat, but the vast majority of their diet is like fruits. That's like all they eat is fruits.
That's hard to say because chimps hunt.
They do eat meat, but the majority of their diet is like
Well,
fruits.
I'd have to look into the like how long they observe them, what period of time,
Yeah.
and what conditions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think also that's localized. You know, if you're in an area that has bountiful fruits and vegetables, your diet's going to consist more highly of those. Like we were talking about, Asians had huge rice fields. They had that availability, but they don't have the land to have a lot of livestock, like on island nations. Same with like India. They they didn't really eat a lot of meat because they needed those animals to plow. They don't really raise livestock for slaughter. And even like nomadic peoples didn't eat a lot of meat because they needed to keep their animals alive that they're herding for the milk and cheese that they would later create from it. And the wool. It wasn't worth it to slaughter the animal until it was old. So they didn't eat it until it expired naturally.
Right.
So I think a majority of people actually ate less.
But that's
meat.
that's after they like started farming and.
Sure, that's past the Paleolithic era.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, hard to say. I mean, I'm sure the information's out there based on the teeth and the residue.
We got canine teeth.
Yeah, I mean we're omnivores though, right? We don't have full canines. We don't.
Well, now
like
we're
carnivores.
omnivores.
Yeah,
I think ancient humans were hypercarnivores though.
Well, are you talking about Homo sapiens or are you talking about an ancestor?
I'm talking about Homo sapiens.
No, see, we haven't changed that much. I doubt that's true.
Well,
I think I can understand a proto-human being a hypercarnivore, but I think our current strain
I'm talking
of
like,
Homo
like the
sapien,
Europeans, what they did was eat like 80% of their diet was meat.
I don't know. We can look this up. We'll
Yeah,
talk
there's
about
no
it
point
next
of
time.
arguing about it. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we're just talking out of our asses now. We can come back to this. Also, if you guys have anything to say, feel free to comment. We'll try to discuss in this podcast.
Comment, rate, subscribe. Go Ducks.
Yeah. We'll see you guys later.